I think we're sort of at the beginning of a bull market. What's your take on the industry right now?
I think more people will go away from centralized exchanges into DEXs.
So how do you bridge the gap between the community and then the rest of the population for the foreseeable future?
I think it starts with the critical mass of people first who have a real problem, which is dealing with all these different banking rails.
Any plans on ever returning to the Western world, North America and such?
You're watching Next Big Wave, the podcast for founders by founders in Southeast Asia. In this episode, we're going to talk about founder journeys, growth strategies, and much more. Just to help me out, if you could like and subscribe, it would be awesome. And let's get into the episode.
Welcome to today's episode of Next Big Wave. Today, I'm with Jon Myers. Jon is an American founder who's now based in Southeast Asia. He's a crypto veteran. Jon, super excited to have you on the show.
Great. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Jon, so we've talked before and you have an extensive background in crypto. I'd love to kind of dive into your work experience and how you ended up in Asia.
Sure. I was living in the US up until about 2008. Started looking into moving to Southeast Asia. First moved to Thailand around 2010, 2011. Always supported myself as an independent designer / founder in some cases, and stumbled into crypto around 2011, 2012. I was working on a project called Coin Simple. We were trying to solve Bitcoin payments way back then. However, we were quite super early.
Right. And so you've been in the industry though ever since. What else have you worked on in the crypto space out of Asia?
I was chief design officer at liquid.com. So originally when I came in there, it was called Coin, led the rebrand there, was the largest exchange in Japan at one time. And then 2020, I broke off and was co-founder in a crypto exchange called Power Trade. And in that case, we were really looking to solve, bring crypto options to retail traders.
Okay, how'd that work out? Are you still involved in that or what are you currently working on?
Broke off that about a month and a half ago and
Okay.
have my own crypto focused design agency, Jon Myers Design, JMD. Currently working with a Swiss payments company called Yodel. It's one of my customers, looking to solve cross-border, payments.
Okay, and when we say design, I'm sure like there's a lot of sort of UX involved. Crypto is already complicated enough as it is as a technology to make
Yeah.
sure that, the retail investors and retail users can kind of adopt it. What you're working on in the design space is really a lot of UX, right? Or am I mistaken?
That's correct. So, for example, in the case of Yodel, it's chain agnostic, token agnostic. It's an abstraction above that, and so it's really heavy on the UX. So, figuring out the flow of those applications and making it simple, easy to use, and so on.
hmm And so your decision to move to Southeast Asia, was it because you see this place as being super bullish in what you like to work in? Or were you just chasing a better lifestyle for yourself?
It was a very deliberate decision. I saw Southeast Asia on the rise, specifically Vietnam, and thought there was an opportunity here to kind of ride that wave. And so when I first came to Vietnam, gross GDP was, you know, I don't remember the exact number, but it's grown, it's almost doubled in the 10 years I've been here. So it's really been on an upward trajectory. Quality of technical talent here is exceptional. Great blockchain developers, great mobile developers. Lot of people even doing AI development, and so
So you're based in Vietnam right now. Which city are you in?
Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon.
Okay, cool. And so, yeah, I've heard the same thing. I haven't worked with Vietnamese developers per se, but every time I speak to people, especially in Southeast Asia, that country comes to mind. Is there a specific reason why Vietnam was like the one leading the charge, whether it's regular development or blockchain, in your opinion?
I think because the traditional East Asian success narrative was kind of dying. The old East Asian success narrative was go to school, get a job, and that whole thing. And that's really impractical here. Corporate jobs don't pay a lot of money. And so I think that kind of pushed people to look to other means to generate income.
Okay. And I mean, similarly to other countries, originally Vietnam was sort of a place for North American and European companies to have an offshore team for development. Seems like nowadays when I talk to people, the tech scene is very much like local startups for Southeast Asia. Are you seeing that shift as well?
I think there's a hybrid of both. I think that in terms of the technical talent, some of the wages have risen, which is a good thing. So it's more global fair market wages, and so I think that sort of forces people to pursue more mature startups, less copycat startups.
What kind of cool original ideas and startups have you seen in the space in Vietnam?
10 years ago, it was all consumer. There's a
Hmm.
lot more B2B stuff now. So there's people working on platforms for VCs to manage their deal flow. That was a cool one called Endwind. Us being in crypto here was a big one. There's Axie Infinity, which
Hmm.
was started here in Saigon. That really blew up and put Saigon on the map.
Okay. And earlier you mentioned moving to Southeast Asia was a deliberate thing. So I know you were seeing Southeast Asia on the rise. Were you also chasing sort of a lifestyle of Southeast Asia and anything caught your attention that you really wanted to pursue?
Um, I think Saigon has the best of everything, in my opinion. So we have optionality in terms of beach, mountains. I can be in Bangkok in an hour by flight. Access to affordable medical care. I really prioritize health and fitness and that sort of thing. So there's great gyms, great food. It really has the whole package as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, fair enough. And so you've kind of gone in and out of being a founder or very much involved very early stages in these companies you worked with. No, why did you pursue being a founder as opposed to sort of pursuing a corporate route that 99% of people are doing these days?
I just think there's more upside to being a founder. Obviously, more risk,
Hmm.
but sometimes the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all. So I figure,
I mean,
why not?
yeah, I agree. I agree. How do you manage to hedge that risk? I mean, you're at a point in your career where now it doesn't necessarily matter as much and you can kind of take these risks. But for anyone who's trying to get into entrepreneurship and their biggest fear is that risk, right? Do you have any tips early stage in your career how you managed to hedge it? Was it like a mental thing or did you do something financial to hedge it and sort of be able to take that journey?
I think the number one piece of advice I would give is you have to have a superpower. So my superpower is design. I'm known for it. People, seek me out for that. And I think what you have to do is you have to marry that superpower with design, with business acumen and deep understanding of the customers in that niche. So if I was just pushing pixels behind the scenes, that's not that interesting. But really knowing the crypto industry well, knowing trading systems well, and being able to apply my design expertise through that lens is what really gives me a lot of power. And so, that allows me to take on projects, be sought after versus just kind of being a generalist, around everything.
Mhm. And how did you get started in that? Because I think the designer career is, like you said, a lot of people are just moving pixels around. You went much more niche into it. How did you get into that?
The main thing I would suggest, so for example, in the design niche, there's nothing stopping any designer from picking a niche right now and just creating work for that. Creating concept work. They can share it on X. They can get feedback in real time from people in the industry. And so there's never been a better time to be a creator, as far as I'm concerned, because there are so many outlets to share what you're working on and that type of thing.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people blow up on Instagram, even like just picking a niche of interact or using AI to sort of bring images to life. And like my buddies in crypto are now paying thousands of dollars just to get these images associated with their protocols or their projects. And these guys are making bank. So I get where you're coming from. One thing you mentioned that was interesting is that you have now people associating you with good design. That's personal branding, right? And other
Yeah.
than having worked on these projects and being known for them, Did you do anything else to do personal branding and to put yourself on the map?
Yeah, I think public speaking's a big one. So I've spoken at a lot of conferences around crypto and design. Something else I think that's really important is building up your network. And so it's kind of counterintuitive. So the best way to network is not by networking. So it's more about building relationships. And so, for example, when I first came to Saigon 10 years ago, I started my own events around tech, crypto, that sort of thing. And so I was bringing people together. People always remember who brings them together, how they got introduced, and that sort of thing. And even more recently, I started another event here in Saigon called Tech Vietnam. And it's just that it's bringing people together in tech, crypto, AI. And first one we did, we had 60 people. So as the organizer, you get all these additional benefits of being associated with that event.
Makes sense. And it's quite rare to see someone from the design world being a founder. Most people are either CTOs and or people who are in sales, like growth, etc. Have you seen any hurdles in being associated as a designer and then going into the founder route?
Um, no, not at all, actually. And in fact, I think the beauty of being a designer is you can quickly prototype ideas. You can prototype so fast and show people exactly what you mean and what you're thinking about. When we first started Power Trade, we had an entire prototype ready to go right then and there. So we were able to raise pretty fast against that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I taught myself design because I wanted to be able to communicate my ideas a lot more efficiently. So I completely concur with that. So, crypto's going through a lot of stuff right now. I think we're sort of at the beginning of a bull market. What's your take on the industry right now?
If you're watching this and you're a B2B startup founder in Southeast Asia, struggling to grow your startup, we have a whole community of founders just like you. And on a weekly basis, we discuss strategies and growth hacks. We'd love to have you amongst us. Feel free to join at nextbigwave.co or find a link in the description. I'll see you there.
I hope so. I think payments are really interesting to me. And then the other thing that I think is really interesting is I think more people will go away from centralized exchanges into DEXs, and they'll have a centralized like trading experience on these DEXs. I think that's going to be one of the next big moves. Um, Everyone's talking about meme coins. That always seems to make the rounds. So I'm sure there's going to be something there. U.S. election coming up will obviously have a big impact, in my opinion, on the market as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you had to have a prediction, how would it go if Trump or Kamala was elected?
Um,
I won't hold you to it.
yeah, well, the existing administration has not been too kind to crypto. So if I would, I can't see how that's going to reverse under Kamala. Whereas in Trump's camp, obviously there are pro crypto individuals. I don't think Trump knows a thing about crypto, which is fine. But Vance, he's a large holder of AVAX. There's other people in that administration who would have a more pro crypto view. And the thing in crypto is people want regulation. They want
Mhm.
they want clarity because that's going to open the doors to a lot more institutional inflow.
Yeah, I agree. And so you mentioned meme coins. Everyone's heard of them. Everyone kind of knows that there are fortunes made and lost on meme coins.
Yeah.
Is there anything to them other than the fact that they're associated with the meme and they have crazy volatility? I mean, people say, well, they have a great backing, they have a great team, etc. Like, what's up with meme coins overall? What are the fundamentals, if ever?
I don't think they are. I just think they're news jacking. They're jacking current events, jacking news, and just attaching a token to that. And it fades out as quick as it gets traction generally.
Generally, right? But then you have things like Shiba and whatnot that have stayed and kept growing. So I'm just wondering, is it just people buying into the dream or the pipe dream of making money, or there is anything associated with a meme coin ever? Just like there
Uh,
are with NFTs.
I think it's good for retail adoption, so it does onboard more people into crypto. Hopefully, those people are starting to look for more productive ways to buy crypto, trade crypto, and store value.
Okay. And you've already been through several startups already. What's your favorite? What's the one you've been working on the most passionately? And I want to kind of dig into that journey. How did it start? How did you get the scale that you got to, and what happened next, etc.?
Power trade was really fun. We blew up really fast, almost too fast. That
Uh-huh.
was started April 2020, right deep into the pandemic. That initial part is really fun when you're starting up. But then, the brass tacks of building product and building an exchange really, really take hold. I think the biggest thing that, came from that was just a deep, deep knowledge of options, derivatives, trading systems, and that. So, I mean, I really walked away with a deep understanding of that space.
Yeah, crypto versus other startups, fundraising is completely different. You're getting massive raises, pre-product. Uh, the growth or how to grow a protocol or a DEX or whatever is very different. Can you kind of
Yeah.
walk us through that, having known other types of startups and the crypto side?
I think a big part of it's community, so you really need to focus on community buy-in because that's ultimately who you're going to be serving our community members. And it's a long road to take a protocol to market. So the community has to really be invested into the project. I was talking to a founder yesterday. I don't want to say who, but a really big project. They had a protocol and were just grinding on it for 3 years, and suddenly they have product market fit now. And it's going to take a long time to see product market fit, and especially, um, you have to have a good governance model. There has to be ways for people to see light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that piece. I think the community piece. Obviously, you need the tech and utility and product roadmap and so on to back it up.
Yeah, so 3 years of managing a community with a hypothetical product. Like how do you manage that? How do you keep people excited?
I think it's tough. I mean, because a lot of these projects do fail. But I think we are starting to see a wave. Like for example, Yodel, which I'm working on now. They're starting to see. They had a protocol, and now we're on the product phase, and we're in the product rollout. So I think people need to see incremental progress along the way.
Hmm. And so tell me more about Yodel. I think it's your passion project right now. It's a client of yours.
It
You
is.
want to expand on it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, basically it just allows for easy payments. So, you don't need it leverages smart wallets. It makes it really simple to send someone money. Obviously you don't have to pay fees. So it's really, the big trend this year is smart wallets, sponsored gas where people don't have to pay gas. And so it makes it really simple to just connect a smart wallet and you can send any token on any chain, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it sounds pretty awesome. My problem with these types of projects is that from an outsider perspective, the thing that you're describing, like sending money for cheap or free, etc., seems like every project is working on something similar. And again, that's from an outside perspective with very little knowledge of the actual tech going into it.
Yeah.
So you, from the design standpoint and like being very sort of hands-on, how do you break through the noise and make people understand that this is actually a different thing and this is something they should be following and getting invested in?
I think first and foremost is user experience, so there's this sort of aha moment when people are actually using the tech. So user experience is going to be key to a project like that. And the problem is if somebody wants to send money fast and it's going to take 10 minutes to connect a wallet, move to someone's desired chain and token, you've already lost them. It has to take 10 seconds or less. And so I think speed, user experience are going to be key for this type of adoption.
Hmm. Yeah, you talked about like, you know, the community being one of the driving forces of scaling a protocol or any type of project on the this crypto space. My question is like these communities are already people who are bought into crypto. how about the general mass of people that we need on crypto for it to continue sustaining this growth? Most people who learn about crypto these days either buy into some of the main coins, ETH, Bitcoin, Solana, whatever, or even worse, buy the ETFs for it. That does very little for the rest of the crypto related projects. So how do you move away from just having these communities of diehard or core users and get the rest? Because, for example, you can't be marketing or you can't be advertising crypto on most platforms. So, how do
Yeah.
you bridge the gap between the community and then the rest of the population for the foreseeable future?
I think there's a path to get there. So, for example, the digital nomad movement would be a big one. So all around the world in these hubs, Bangkok, Lisbon, Saigon, Chiang Mai, there's actually quite a few people. So I think it starts with the critical mass of people first who have a real problem, which is dealing with all these different banking rails. So if I want to send you money in Bangkok, I'm gonna have to go through a bunch of hassles to do that through a standard bank account. Whereas if I just gave you a Yodel link or something, you could just pay instant, doesn't matter. So I think it's kind of starting with that particular cohort first. I would say people in other places maybe don't realize they have a problem either. So that's the issue as well.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, on-ramping is still not the easiest thing, even for people in the know, right? My money is in Canada. If I want to bring it to Southeast Asia, even if I wanted to use crypto, just on-ramping remotely from a Canadian bank into the crypto sphere, it's not easy. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of problems and a lot of hurdles. I just feel like we've been talking about crypto quite heavily for the last 8 years, let's say, at least in my sphere of influence, and I haven't seen a ton of progress in that regard. So, do you think it's because of institutions making it difficult, or it's just like you said, people don't see a problem, and the solving of this problem is a lot slower than we anticipated?
I think it's a mix, so I don't think there's one specific thing. I mean, there are examples right now of insane crypto adoption. So Polymarket comes to mind. I think the betting markets and stuff like that. That's massive. It's a huge narrative this election cycle. So people need crypto to participate in that market. And in terms of the institutional side, I think we're just getting started. So we're only about 9, 10 months into it right now. And so we saw the largest inflow, 19 billion into the IBIT ETF, which was massive. And so that's just now heating up. We won't even know how much adoption there is until we start to see the quarterly filings from that stuff, right? So we'll see who's starting to put this on their balance sheets, which private equity firms which firms are putting this on their balance sheets and so on.
Mm. Did you mention Poly Market? I'm not sure if I heard that correctly.
Yeah, I
Is that
did.
what is that? I've never heard that before.
Oh, it's a betting market. So right now there's about 1.5 billion that's been bet on the election outcome, which is
Okay.
massive. Yeah, so there's a
Yeah.
lot of trading. It's just gotten to the point where there's enough liquidity and order book depth in that market to make it a viable prediction market.
Hmm. Okay. And looking at your LinkedIn, you've had a lot of experience. We talked separately before this podcast, and a lot of this stuff you worked on was quite successful. Anything that was not successful, I like to go through some of the horror stories of your career. So I don't know if you've had something where you're like, damn, what happened there? Like, that was a disaster.
I mean, I've started so many things. Any founder, you have a whole trail of things that have failed. Some things I've started that they blew up and they got big, and then they just sort of fell apart. So one, I don't want to say the name of it here, but I helped two founders from Rocket Internet launch an e-commerce brand here in Vietnam,
Okay.
and it blew up. They got to 100 people. We worked on the brand end to end. So I helped them on every detail of the brand. They went out, they raised a bunch of capital, but then that thing spectacularly blew up. And so I think because it was in a race to the bottom market, It did that, and that's one of the reasons I never really. I've been offered a lot to get involved as an equity partner and that sort of thing on these types of projects, and so I try and kind of know myself. So in that case, I don't have a passion for a long term passion to participate in the journey for that type of project. Other projects, if they're in finance, crypto, I may have a different point of view.
Where you feel you have a bit more control, right?
That and also where I could make a longer term lasting impact. There's some times where I would just go in and there's only so much work for me to do to start it up, and then I can hand it over to other people.
So is that your MO? Then you kind of like to get in early, set things up, and then pass it on and move on to the next thing? Or are there projects where you kind of want to commit for the next 5 to 10 years? Or
Um, there are some projects like that. I mean, oftentimes too, like another example of one I got involved with was a SaaS called Sendowl, Sendowl. And so I worked with that founder, every detail on the customer journey, um, everything, and we really got a good product market fit. And then that founder sold that company for a nice exit. And so I sometimes for me, I would rather just get in, get out. For other projects, yeah, it could be a longer term thing.
yeah, and so this design studio that you have right now, is it to get exposure to more projects so that you can pick one maybe to focus on, or find a new idea for you to build, or you just want to kind of have this studio now as your, I don't know if you call it lifestyle business or just the thing that you want to work on right now.
It's kind of the thing I want to work on. So right now, because I'm really well known for crypto and design, so I've intentionally organized the studio around those two things and around my name. Q1, Q2, 2025, I'll rebrand the studio and I'll start to take in uh, a wider body of niches around that, specifically around AI, because I think every single app is going to have to be transitioned into AI. So I think there's a huge addressable market opportunity there, and I want to be the go-to design studio for transitioning software into AI.
Mm. One question I didn't ask you, but your name is obviously associated with this studio because you're well known for what you do. Are you a solo person in the studio? And if not, how do you train your skill that people, recruit you specifically for, and then have multiple people operating the same way you do at a high level?
So, from my experience of being a design mentor, speaking about design, leading design in organizations, I have a large network of designers that I've trained. So, some of them have gone on to be heads of designs at companies, actually, quite a few. And so, I'm able to scale up on a project basis with that talent in my network. So, I don't, at this point, I don't have to train new design talent. If I did, I would know what to look for and how to identify them.
And when you talk about these mentees that you have, and this expandable network, are we talking Vietnam, or you find talented people outside of Vietnam? Like, I don't know what the scene is
Um,
like in Vietnam. I know.
People all over actually. So
Yeah.
some people from France, Germany, some Vietnamese, Americans. So really all over.
Okay. And is Vietnam a good place for that? Because Philippines, in my opinion, has been one of my favorite places to work with for creatives. Now I'm realizing Thailand has a ton of resources.
Yeah.
How's Vietnam for that?
I think it's good. You have to be really, really particular. So I
Hmm.
would say out of the ones that are here, there's maybe I would work with 1 or 2%. Something
Okay.
like that. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty particular, really detailed. There's some things about design I think there's things in Asian culture, particularly around language, because we're composing layouts made of words and type. And so in Asian languages, they don't have, for example, the typographic traditions that we have in the English language. So if you're designing for that audience, that can be an issue. They don't know how to format type, or they're going to format type different for that audience. So that's why you always see things really crammed together when they push designs.
Makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually interesting. Like the cultural differences make up a lot of the work outfit. You mentioned you've been mentoring a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Did you get started with a mentor, or are you still using a mentor yourself?
No, not on design, but I'm constantly improving my design skills. There's always new technical things to learn. There's always, there when I first started, there was nowhere to go for it. So I started a long time
Hmm.
ago. And so there was really you had to be self-taught. You couldn't go to school for it for sure, especially for UX UI design. So I was started out in Photoshop. There was an application called Fireworks. That was a big one. It was put out by Macromedia, then Adobe bought that. And then in 2011, Sketch came out, 2011, 2012. And so that's when the industry really started to improve for the better.
Yeah. No, I mean, staying up to speed is kind of essential. How do you actually stay up to speed yourself? Are you like on YouTube? Do you have a few people that you follow, or there's like industry news? I'm curious about the design work.
I have a deep, information habit. So I use a bunch of different applications to as part of my information, consumption. So I use one called Feedly, which organizes all my, news feeds from different, design sites and so on. I use Twitter lists, for example, so they have something called TweetDeck or X Pro now, and I follow specific designers on X. So as it happens, it's running in the background sometimes. And then I have a system for capture. So there's an application called Cosmos. It's kind of like Pinterest. So you can just collect things, you can organize them into different things. And then I have a large back channel of designers that I talk to all the time. So I have different Facebook groups, and I'm sharing things with peers in real time. They're sharing things with me. So a heavy information consumption habit.
Yeah, sounds like it. I mean, seems super organized. I guess. Are you one of those like kind of OCD people? Design goes with OCD, I guess. If you want to be pixel perfect, so it sounds like you have your setup, everything organized on a daily basis. You're really up to speed.
Yeah, I use Obsidian for personal knowledge management. I use Notion for work infrastructure and process and knowledge management, but very, very organized. So,
That sounds like it. It's something
yeah.
that I've been kind of chasing, being that organized, but maybe my chaotic mind is not like willing to conform to it. I try to do it any ways I can, but it's I definitely not to that level.
I think the other thing is just have a simple system. So I use Apple Notes more than anything. So I have everything organized in folders. I'm constantly taking notes. That's a really big one.
Cool. And so seems like a lot of your time is consumed by learning and working. Do you do anything else outside of work? Any hobbies and stuff?
Gym. I'm in there 5, 6 days a week training. Love the gym. Here in Saigon, we have a killer expat entrepreneur community. So we're always trading notes. Um, Two French bulldogs. I have a 18-month-old daughter, so I keep pretty
Good
busy
stuff.
here.
Yeah, no kidding. Uh Something I'm always curious about because once you're in something and you've become really, really good at it, it just seems so obvious to keep pursuing that. But sometimes you sit back and you think like, I wish I was doing something completely different. Just it's such a big sacrifice that I'm not going to do it. Is there anything else you'd be doing if you really could just give up what you were doing right now, whether it's work
Uh,
or something else?
Uh, I love writing, so I'm constantly practicing writing. I don't know if I'm good at it yet, but I'm constantly practicing that. So probably writing about health, fitness, masculinity, parenting, that kind of stuff. Is of big interest.
So like you blog or something anonymously
Um,
or
I'm posting on X a lot, so I do get some posts that go viral about fitness. Or I posted about Da Nang a couple weeks ago, and that one went viral. So, but also posting about design. So I have a schedule and way of doing that, and that seems to work. But I would love to write more specifically about health and fitness.
okay. Yeah, that's cool. I was actually in Da Nang not long ago, influenced by not necessarily your blog, but someone I read online, and I was not as impressed as the blog described it. Uh, you've been to Da Nang, obviously. Any thoughts on that? Because I know Ho Chi Minh was sold to me like the best place to go after Bangkok, or like on the same
Yeah.
level, but Da Nang just didn't do it for me.
It's too slow for me, I think, so I don't think I could live
Yeah.
there long term, especially, access to, good groceries, gyms, that kinda thing. I don't think it's there yet.
Hmm.
And Saigon's where all the action's at, so if you wanna if you're a builder, I think this is the best city to be in.
Yeah, well, I'll have to check it out because to me, Bangkok, as much as I'm trying to push it on the map and involved in a lot of startup related activities, it's still very kind of behind a lot of other cities I've been in Southeast Asia. So love to check out Saigon. Have you tried any other places in Southeast Asia? You said you were in Bangkok and then you moved to Vietnam. Any
Um,
other places that you
uh
tried or want to?
I lived in KL for a little bit, lived in southern Thailand in Ao Nang, Krabi.
Okay.
That was too vacation mode for me.
Right.
I'm a city guy. I like to be around city amenities and I want to have a good community. That's the big piece. So I think that's what we really have here in Saigon. So it would be hard to recreate the community I have here. Some people I've been friends with. This microphone came from a friend of mine I've known for 10 years. So I
Okay.
messaged him this morning. I was like, "Hey, I need a
Nice.
microphone." And he just dropped it in a Grab delivery and it showed up. So
Love it.
yeah, so that kind of thing is really hard to recreate somewhere else, and we're at a stage of life now where there's this new generation coming in, so I'm still connected to the new generation, and then some of the old generation are settled down, they're married, they're having children, and that kind of thing, so it's an entirely new phase, and
Mhm.
so it's really cool to kind of see that evolution. I'm still extremely bullish on Vietnam.
Good stuff. And I mean, my next question, I don't want to assume, but I'm pretty convinced I'll know the answer. Any plans on ever returning to the Western world, North America and such?
I don't think so. No, I
Yeah. Yeah.
I I'll share an anecdote. This is pretty funny. I was at a diner last Sunday and this 20-year-old local kid starts chatting me up. He thought I was a DJ because I was wearing big headphones. And we were talking about music. Anyways, long story short, um, this kid out of nowhere, he says, "Well, I would never move to the US." Which is totally different. When I first got here 10 plus years ago, it was exactly the opposite. And it was because of the way the culture is moving in certain directions that they don't really agree with, and it doesn't really align. And I think here it's pretty awesome. It's a great place to be a parent. It's family first. It's very safe. Um, my daughter, we have a live-in nanny here, so that's pretty awesome. We have everything's taken care of, and so it would be really hard to recreate this lifestyle in the West.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny to like as locals now, we know how safe it is, how great it is, how developed it is here. But from the outside perspective, people always ask me, like, are you okay there? Like, can you find stuff to buy? Like, are you comfortable? I'm like, you have no idea. And I'm trying to initially when I started this podcast, I was like, let me promote the hell out of Southeast Asia that all these people need to know. And I'm like, wait, should I be bringing all them here? Because I don't want to change their life. And the more people come, the more it'll change. So decided to
Yeah.
have a different perspective on it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it's good. We have seen, like here in Saigon, we have seen like a new influx.
Okay.
And generally, like the people that settle in Saigon are pretty there's a really high value, great quality community here. So, people are entrepreneurs, they're builders. Uh, eh, that aspect's actually pretty awesome. And the community grows. Like we do a brunch every Saturday and there'll be 15 people there. It looks like there's a celebration or something, but we're talking about AI, we're talking about crypto, we're hashing on our projects and that type of energy. I haven't seen that anywhere else.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, if you were in San Francisco, whatever, you'd find it, but then you'd have to kind of navigate the crackhead and the broken windows to get there. So
I
it's a
think
lot
that and
nicer here.
everyone's always busy, right? Like when I lived in New York,
Right.
it had a killer tech scene, but it's like, what are you doing 2 weeks from next Tuesday at 6 p.m.?
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And so here it's very serendipitous. It's
Right.
like hey, meet me down here, down the street, and everyone. It's very ad hoc, and
It's a lot
so
easier.
yeah, and so that aspect of it, there's just tighter community bonds. Like I saw our whole crew last Friday night. We had a happy hour. We had brunch last Saturday, 15 people. Then we had a dinner on Sunday, because a buddy's mom was in town, and everyone's invited, everyone's wives. I brought my family with me. It's just like it's just awesome.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. It's the same in Bangkok, and something that in Toronto I could never do. Like you said, you have to plan ahead. People are always finding excuses, for lack of better words, and it just sucks. Like, I think life is a lot easier here. It's cheap, so you don't even think about it. You want to go out to a restaurant, sure, like let's all go. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. No matter where you go, it's not gonna be that expensive.
Yeah.
And I think people are in a mindset where they're still grinding hard, but it is like vacation feeling as well to it. So you kind of mix both, and the lifestyle just works better.
Yeah. I totally agree. Totally agree.
Good stuff. Cool. I mean, we've talked about a lot. This was a really, really insightful podcast for me. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Before we kind of wrap things up, is there something or someone you want to shout out to?
Um, I don't I don't know. Just visit me on X. I'm just JonMyers. Follow me on there and JonMyers.com.
Sweet. Love it. Well, John, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a real pleasure. And that's it for the pod.
Great. Thanks so much. Bye now.